Good evening, freaks and friends, and welcome to Math Rants. I'm your conduit of hate, Math Machine, and today I'm going to be talking a bit about two specific game companies, but the gaming industry in, well, the big, large gaming industry as a whole because of them. I bring this up because in the news lately, there has been a lot of news about both EA and Ubisoft just doing things so horribly. I know that the first response is, oh great, another guy about to diss EA and Ubisoft like we haven't heard this 1,000 times before. This is my channel, I can do what I want, god damn it. So anyway, these guys have this, I think, let's start more at the beginning. EA and Ubisoft have both been video game companies since the 80s. Electronic Arts is just a publisher. Ubisoft is actually a developer publisher. They both started out pretty much like any other company, pretty small. I'm using both of these guys as opposed to just one or the other because EA, apart from Microsoft, I don't really count them because they have a console, so that makes them larger just for that sole fact. EA is the largest video game company here in America, and Ubisoft is the largest video game company in Europe. They both are basically the kings of their particular regions. And they started out like every other company, just small time, doing a little bit here and there, having tons and tons of competitors. They both have survived because, granted, they both have made and published really good game series. Ubisoft, in particular, early on, was known for, among other things, every Tom Clancy game known to man. And EA was known for, they bought Maxis pretty early on, so they had The Sims, SimCity, all that. They had Madden, which it was, and because of something I'll discuss in a moment, is the biggest selling football series, period. And they just have a ton of other companies under their belt. They have bought so many different video game developers, it's kind of insane. And over the years, they have gotten, I think in part because they've gotten bigger, they've gotten a bit worse in the way that they relate to people as opposed to relate to shareholders and business partners. They've done some things that most consumers don't like. The biggest thing that comes to mind is both of them have their own downloading services. Ubisoft has Uplay and EA has Origin. Both considered by many to be incredibly horrible services that often break and just do not work in general. I believe that these came out a couple of years after Steam. They both saw what Valve was doing with Steam. They wanted in on that because they had large catalogs themselves. But also, the main reason that has been pretty well acknowledged is that these were ways to fight piracy, because these companies have been around since the 80s, so they've had to develop a lot of games for PC. And EA is kind of heh about that, but Ubisoft in particular, they hate developing for PC. Oh my god, the PC ports that you get are shoddy at best. The PC games that they make are crappy, buggy, barely finished, if even what you would consider finished. And then Uplay is such a bad service in general, even compared to EA's Origin. It is so bad. You can pretty well expect anytime there's a new game that comes out, you're not going to be able to play it for about a week, even if it's a single-player game and you're not using it for online anything. At one point, actually several points in Ubisoft's history, they have insulted the large portion of PC gamers by both indirectly and directly calling them pirates. There was a quote from one of the executives or vice presidents of some part of Ubisoft that said that 95% of the people that will play this game on PC are going to pirate it anyway. I'm quoting that directly, and you cannot imagine how ticked off that made PC gamers. I'm a very PC-centric guy. I've had consoles. I have a PC. I run the gambit. I have been playing video games since the Super Nintendo Sega Genesis days. So I've been there, I've done that, and they just like spit in the face of PC gamers. They really don't like them for reasons that have largely escaped me. I can't for the life of me figure out why. And they just keep perpetuating this ideology of, oh, all PC gamers are pirates, we're not going to do anything for them. And ironically, in effect, because they've done that, that's made us pirate their games. I'm sorry, but a good chunk of Ubisoft's PC sales, because they keep saying we're all pirates, self-fulfilling prophecy, we've become pirates. Because you give us such crap quality, such a disregard for our very just existence. Of course, we're gonna. I completely understand why people do. I don't hold it against them against Ubisoft. I don't hold it against people who pirate Ubisoft games. Goddamn English. Because they go out of their way to basically just slap PC gamers every chance they get. That's what's going to happen. EA is... They don't directly spit in people's faces quite like that, but they seem to have this habit of thinking that we are really, really stupid. One of the biggest things that just happened recently, I mean like this week, which is partially what inspired me to do this, was in the Sims 4 game, which seems to not be that much of a leap between Sims 3 and Sims 4. If you don't know what the Sims series is, it is like the second or third, if you include all the expansions, second or third biggest selling PC game. If you include all the expansions and the sequels, I think it is the biggest selling PC series in the history of gaming. To tell you how many expansions, that every single game has had about 10 or 15 expansion packs. Granted, these some of them give a good amount of content, some of them are pretty much useless. They all cost about, well, when the game is new, i.e. when there's only like, say, Sims 2, Sims 3 hasn't come out yet, the game costs about $30 to $50, depending on how recently you get it. And then the expansions, pretty much as a rule, cost $10 to $25. It's never been under 10. It's, I don't think, ever been over 25. So, all things told, if you buy a Sims game and all the expansions for it, when the new game hasn't come out yet, you're looking at roughly $500 for one game. I'm not even making that up. And Sims 1 and 2 were pretty good games. Sims 3 ran like shit with all of its expansions. EA could not optimize the damn thing. It took forever, I'm not kidding, to load anything. you have a really powerful modern computer, like say you built it with all the newest high-tech stuff, you built it just last week, you buy everything of Sims 3, it would take you, like, I'm not kidding, 5-10 minutes to load up the Sims 3. It is that poorly optimized. And that's just loading up into the main screen of the game. That's not even counting loading a save file and starting up the game. But the news from that was that in order to save time and release on the date that they said they were, which is July of this year, they are going to be cutting out toddlers. That's a life stage in the Sims game. And pools. Toddlers, I can hit or miss on. I will be upset that it's leaving. It was a small portion of the life period. Usually, the way Sims games work is that it's a typical lifespan of a Sim is something in the ballpark of 90 days on normal speed to 90 Sim days, by the way, for normal speed, and if for the longest speed, the longest time period you could keep your Sims alive, it was something in the ballpark of a year in, again, Sim days, which go by really fast. And a toddler stage of life lasted 2 days in the normal speed, maybe a week in the extended length at best. So I'm not really too upset about that one. I'm upset, but not as much as pools. Pools have been a base game content piece since Sims 1. It's been vanilla. Vanilla for all you PC gamers, and at this point I'm not sure why a non-PC gamer would be watching this. Means that it was in the core game, no added expansions, no added patches, no added anything else. It's been at the beginning of each of the Sims games. They took out pools. Granted, pools didn't really do much in-game. I think that the majority of people who played The Sims, they messed around with pools just to kill their Sims because fun. But they took that out. That's been a core vanilla feature of The Sims, and they took it out because we don't have time. They said that they would put it in later, either through a patch for free, bullshit, or they would add it in an expansion later. So what you're telling us, EA, is that now two things that have pretty well become, well, one thing that has pretty well become a core feature, the toddler life stage, and pools, a thing that has been a core feature forever, are now going to be in the expansion packs. There's a reason why people regard EA as one of the worst companies as far as consumers are concerned on the planet. Before this, in 2012 and 2013, EA was in an online poll. It was sort of like a tournament bracket style poll where people voted for the worst company in America. In 2012 and 2013, EA won. This was just a silly internet poll thing, but it kind of showed. They beat out companies like BP Oil, Time Warner Cable, Comcast, all of the electronic companies. They beat every single big name. How they beat out all of these companies that people should just look at and say, "Wow, you guys have done some really bad shit." A lot of people seem to think that that's because these were video game companies, and most of the people who would be voting on this poll would be internet savvy people, i.e. gamers. That's one of the theories I tend to agree with, but it still kind of shows how bad you are regarded if in just a random generic haha thing you are voted worst in the world twice. That didn't mean anything. And I don't think that even EA should have looked at that as anything. But it's just astounding. That shows you how much people did not like them. Another thing that EA has done, and I touched on this a moment ago, so now I'm bringing it back up again, is in early on in EA, and this is going back all the way to the late 80s, early 90s, they made Madden, which was in part not produced by Madden himself, but in association with Madden himself, the coach and the commentator for football. And early on, it was actually a really good series that tried to innovate a lot. And there was a lot of competition that sprung up because of that, because it became such a popular selling series. What EA did, and this has, I think, been a bad idea since then, is they bought an exclusive license with the NFL to be the only ones that could make NFL games. Not college football games. Anyone can still do that because that's a whole other regulatory board in general. But they are the sole providers of any official football game. You can still make games resembling football or like Tecmo Bowl, as long as you don't use real players right now, you can do that. But you can't make an official licensed NFL game. Only EA can do that. They did that contract, I think it was like 05, 06. It was a long time ago. And they have just basically refused to innovate since then because they're the only game in town. So why spend extra money building a new engine every year, adding new pieces every year, when they can just not, and people will still buy it? Hell, there have been a few years where when the transition was from the Xbox PS2 era to the Xbox 360 PS3, and then that generation to this one, they've actually cut content, which some former employees have stated they did that because they just wanted to save money. They didn't actually need to. They just wanted to try and see how far they could go, ripping people off, and people still bought it. What does that say about us? I'm not sure. But in that same vein, Ubisoft has been doing that a lot lately. Assassin's Creed series, year after year after year after year, they'll keep shoveling that out. Assassin's Creed 1 to 2 was good. That was a really big improvement. Assassin's Creed 3, not so much. Assassin's Creed Black Flag was a good improvement, and then this new one looks like it's not really going to add anything new to the formula. They've been doing that with a lot of other series too. The Splinter Cell series, most of their Tom Clancy stuff, they'll do that. Just stuff like that in general. That these big companies just. Ubisoft's new game, Watch Dogs. They stated early on they were going to make this a yearly series, and that's what these companies want to do these days. They don't want to make a new IP, see if it's popular, and then turn it into a series that they can turn out every 2 years or 3 years. No. It's got to be a series that will become... It's got to be a new IP that will become a series and be released every single year. These guys, EA and Ubisoft, are at the forefront of having that kind of mentality. And it's started to affect a lot of other companies because they have to keep up. It's as weird as it sounds and as sad as it sounds, even though people don't like this, they still buy the games and it works. And so other smaller companies have to do this in order to try and stay profitable. Otherwise, if they actually do spend the time and money to innovate and still only sell as much as, say, EA for just shoveling out whatever last year's edition was with a new sticker on it. They're losing a ton of money, and they can't afford to do that. This is just a case of big companies are deciding what the future is, and these two companies are just gigantic asses. There is no other way to describe it. They both are starting to, especially EA, put microtransactions in their games, in full-priced games, I might add. Microtransactions are basically, you can unlock this stuff for free by playing it for 30, 40, 60, 100 hours, or you can pay us $5 to get it for free. Both companies are doing this at large, and for games that we've already paid full price for. And because they've gotten so much success with it, it's going down the ladder to other smaller companies. I don't want to sound preachy with this, but these two companies, people just, they won't. I know they won't. They need to stop giving them so much business so that they can wake up and actually see that people don't like this, rather than just hearing online that people don't like this. That's the only way it's going to stop, and unfortunately, I know it won't happen because, prime example, BioWare, one of my favorite companies of all time. Back in, I think it was 2008, 2009, they were bought by EA. They are now owned by EA, and unfortunately, it's kind of shown with their games. Mass Effect 3 felt like it had a rushed ending. Star Wars: The Old Republic felt like a rushed MMO. It was a good MMO, don't get me wrong, but it felt rushed. And then when they transitioned from a full-price MMO to a free-to-play MMO, it was considered by many to be the worst, the absolute worst free-to-play MMO that you could possibly find. I don't completely blame EA or BioWare for that, because it started out as a subscription-based MMO and they tried to transition it to a free-to-play MMO. That's really hard to do, just in general, because they aren't built for that. They're built with the idea that this is going to be based on around a subscription, then they transition it, and they have to find a happy medium price point to be able to say, okay, this is what the free players can do, and this is what the paid subscription players can do. They failed at it, but I can't quite blame them for that. And then they made Dragon Age 2, which I was okay with, but it was definitely a step down from Dragon Age 1. And just every game that they've released since about 2011, where you could tell that EA had their hand in it somehow, it was noticeably worse than the typical quality of game that you would expect from BioWare, who had a very good pedigree behind them before that. I mean, these are the guys that made Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, which are widely considered as some of the best, if not the best, computer RPGs of all time. Same thing can be said with Ubisoft. I can't remember off the top of my head this second some of the things that they bought, but they have, and they've rebooted it, continued it, shovelwared it. You can tell that it's gotten worse over years. These are just really big companies, and they're doing what really big companies should do. They're trying to profit. Unfortunately, it's just like a lot of big companies these days. They're doing it at the expense of guys like me who buy their product. They're making them as cheap as possible, giving as little as possible, and still expecting us to pay as much as we did before, if not more. And we need to stop. We won't. We'll keep buying them. I hate to say it, I'll probably keep buying them, because I'm looking forward to Dragon Age Inquisition. I'll wait. I'm not going to pre-order it. I'm not going to buy it day one. I'm actually going to wait for it, see how it is, and then buy it if it's good. But unfortunately, a lot of people aren't like that. The pre-orders are the big thing these days. Pre-order this, pre-order that, pre-order, pre-order, pre-order. There have been games that have just, they've profited before they even sold a single unit. That's insane. And just letting EA, Ubisoft continue like that, they are going to they are just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse until eventually, as I said in another video, we'll get the same bloody game year after year after year. I'm not talking like remakes or just minor improvements. I mean literally the same game year after year after year. And boy, those will be fun times indeed. I've been Math Machine, ranting on so long that I forgot where I even started, saying